All right, welcome into the Iowa High School Athletic Association dual bracket reveal. Tony Hager here. Eric Scher is going to be alongside me, who does our rankings all year. We are excited that you're joining us. Obviously, we've been doing rankings every single week, trying to keep you guys updated, but it's all out the window. Rankings are out the window. The coaches kind of got everything in line, and the wrestlers made it happen, right? So we're here at the state tournament on Saturday. We're excited to be covering it once again. So let's get right into our number one seeds. Right now, you got the Southeast Polk, number one, wire to wire, Algona, number one, and then you've got Alburnett, the number one in Class 1A. Just quick thoughts here. Just as a guy that been looking at these duels rankings all year long, are you surprised by where we ended up here to start the state tournament?
No, this is pretty much what we had. I think our last rankings, we had all three of those number one. Like you said, Southeast Polk was wire to wire number one. Alburnett was two, but then they beat Bosco, so they've been one ever since when they beat them at the Battle of Waterloo. And then Algona started three and then worked their way to the top, so they've been at one pretty much the last half of the rankings.
Yeah, so we knew they were going to be solid teams, and obviously they proved it. So let's get out those screenshots. Appreciate all the teams that are doing a watch party. This is kind of what we're wanting to do every year, is get the teams excited about the state duels again. So let's get right into these brackets so you guys can get on to practice. So Class 1A, we're going to be having number one Alburnett taking on Woodbury Central. Then Osage, number 5 seed, is going to be taking on Jessup, number 4. Then you'll have Wilton, number 3, taking on Riverside Oakland, the number 6 seed. And then Nashua Plainfield, the number 7, taking on Don Bosco in Class 1A. Anything that kind of surprised you last night, real quick here before we get into the big breakdown of how this bracket shakes out?
Your top five, not really. They were pretty much projected to get through regionals. Nashua takes out Lake Mills. That was kind of a toss-up meet there. Woodbury Central takes out Hinton in a close duel. So nothing too crazy. A little bit of upsets, but maybe your bottom three kind of could have went anyway. But again, fairly chalk here.
Yeah, we had Osage really low at the beginning of the year because we didn't know with them coming down to 1A. They got 8 losses on the year. So just a kudos to that program, just to kind of, really climbing up the ladder in Class 1A. So Class 2A, guys, let's get ready here. Let's get right to this. The number one ranked team, number 1 seed team in the bracket's going to be Algona, undefeated on the season. They're going to be taking on number 8, Mount Vernon. Then you're going to have Independence, the number 5 seed, taking on Williamsburg, the number 4. And at 3, we have SBL taking on Clarion Goldfield. And then number 7, Winterset, going to be taking on West Delaware in the number 2 seed. So, Shares, how about this one? We had some different numbers going into this show, kind of where everybody was going to be at. So, really, any surprises to you right now that sticks out to your mind?
I would say if you think you have 2A figured out, I'm going to call you a liar, because everybody's beat everybody all year long. Just been total chaos. Even here at regional duels, we bumped Assumption up to 2 because they had a couple big wins. They get knocked off by Mount Vernon, who kind of ran the gauntlet and even had to beat Burlington Notre Dame first round of that regional. You had Humboldt and Clarion Goldfield. That was kind of a toss-up. So Clarion pulls that out. But we had Sergeant Bluff a little lower. They are undefeated. They haven't met up with a bunch of these teams here. Kind of same, Really, Algona hasn't met up with some of the other ones. They've beaten Clarion. Mount Vernon's kind of been up and down a little bit. Indy's wrestled everybody close. So, there's a team that could do some damage from the 5 seed. Clarion's got a lot of big wins too. So, and your top 2 teams are really good. So this one's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, breaking down Class 2A is going to be crazy. So stick around for that. Let's get right into Class 3A for those big schools looking in on here. We've got some names at the top that are used to being there, right? Number 1, Southeast Polk, going to be taking on number 8, North Scott. Then number 5, Waukee Northwest, taking on Johnston, number 4. Then the 3 seed, Indianola, going to be taking on Bettendorf. And then on the bottom side of the bracket, Waverly Shellrock, number 2, will be taking on Carlisle. We knew Southeast Polk was going to have one of the best teams in Iowa, potentially one of the best teams that we have seen in the state. Specifically, in Class 3A for sure. So what, maybe kind of towards the middle here, anything that kind of catches your eye right away?
I mean, seedings-wise, once you saw these 8 teams in, that's kind of how I thought it was going to shake out. I mean, getting there was quite interesting. Carlisle has a close duel with Ankeny. They beat them. You had Norwalk in there, too, that Ankeny had to beat first round. Bettendorf knocks off Pleasant Valley. That was kind of a close duel meet. Waukee Northwest had to get by an Ankeny Centennial team that had kind of been up and down as well. You didn't know what they were going to have. North Scott, they knock off Bondurant for our first round. Then a big upset over Linn-Mar to make it. So you kind of had some chaos in 3A regional duels last night. But now since we're here, the seedings pretty much shook out how you would think.
Yeah, I'm just pumped that we've kind of gotten to the point where it's moved now, where we're gonna have those good teams wrestling for semifinals and finals. But last year we did see a lot of these teams on the backside, competing for that third place finish. So 3A, 2A, and 1A down the line, it started to mean something again. It feels like anyway, Shares. So just a reminder, if you're a fan not familiar with where your team is going to be wrestling, the number 1 versus number 8 seed and number 4 and number 5 seed will wrestle at 9 a.m. And then the 3 versus 6 and the 2 versus 7 will wrestle at 10:45 duels, and then it will just progress onto that. So we'll have a state hub up for the state duel. So and then of course the Iowa High School Athletic Association's got a great tournament central out there. So thanks everybody for tuning into the watch party. We're going to break it down a little more in depth of each of these brackets right here. So thanks for tuning in. Screenshot it, tag us in it. Let's break this down, Shares. Class 1A.
Yeah, we'll just start with our first matchup here. We got number 1 Alburnett versus number 8 Woodbury Central. Your 1 versus 8 matchup's always going to be a little bit of a mismatch, but Woodbury Central actually has the 3rd most appearances with 11 out of the 8 teams in Class 1A here. So Alburnett, they've been pretty good all year. Woodbury's been, they're kind of a young team, been doing pretty well out in western Iowa. You got 10 ranked wrestlers for Alburnett. Woodbury does have 6, though. Usually you don't really see that many from a number 8 seed, but not a great matchup for Woodbury, as it never is your 1 versus 8. You have some of the weights where they have some decent guys, like they have number 5 Gavin Wigg for Woodbury Central. You have number 2 Preston Klosterman from Alburnett. One weight where you do have the higher seeded guy for Woodbury would be you got number 4 Carter Wright for Woodbury, and then you have number 6 Egan Fleshman for Alburnett. So, maybe kind of a ranked win there. I mean, Woodbury's definitely scored some points in this meet, but I think Alburnett's going to prevail.
Yeah, I mean, kudos for Woodbury Central getting back here. It's been since 2021. That was kind of a weird time in wrestling too. So I mean, Alburnett's been really towards the top here the last few years. So they're going to be coming in excited, and they got nothing to lose, right? Obviously in that first matchup. But the next matchup, right? That's the one that is really interesting, going to be new for a lot of people. Osage being at 1, down to 1A. I still don't think people are used to seeing Osage in 1A duels. So Osage versus Jessup. I know there's a lot of hype around Jessup. They're really excited about this team. They've wrestled before. So what matches maybe should guys be people be looking for in that matchup?
So these two have actually wrestled once this year. Jessup won 39-28. 11-point spread there. Jessup won an overtime match. They also won another one, 3-1, kind of a close match. So the overtime match that Jessup won was at 120, and then 132, Jessup won 3-1. So, if you flip those two, that gives Osage the win there. If everything else goes the same, this is going to be a good one, as your 4-5 usually is. This is, Jessup's second straight time they've made it. Before that, they hadn't made it at all. I mean, obviously Osage, 5-time champs, actually be the second most in 1A now that they're down to 1A. So this one's going to be a good one to keep your eye on, obviously, as your 4-5 usually is.
I mean, Jessup's undefeated on the year, 24-0. That's a lot of duels, right? It's a lot of duels. Osage, they've with the Battle of Waterloo, they've taken 8 losses. So they've seen 2A, they've seen 3A. So they've seen some stiff competition too. So I mean, no surprise, see that they figured out how their lineup was going to be But I like Jessup. There's something about a buzz of a small town Jessup, right, in a Class 1A. So
it's an interesting matchup too because none of your ranked wrestlers cross over. So Jessup has 5 ranked guys from 106 on up to 138, and then 144 is where Osage's ranked guys start. So
might be some jockeying around of some.
It might be
gamemanship, right? I mean, depending on where they start, because they'll flip, right? I believe they flip last. They don't start at 106, right? They'll flip, or do they make it to where 106 is at the finals? I can't remember.
No,
it's flipped. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on. We'll break down kind of semifinals and finals here in a little bit. But you've got number 3 Wilton taking on Riverside Oakland, who really surprised me at the end rankings that Oakland Riverside was clear of as high as they were. So I mean, they are undefeated. You know, is that a team that people need to be looking out for?
I mean, they're pretty good. It's one of those where I think they kind of moved around a little bit to get some regional hosts out in the western side. I mean, you know, we had them higher up we had them decently high in our rankings, but you know, I heavily favoring Wilton here. Riverside, Oakland, they have 2 ranked teams, or excuse me, 2 ranked wrestlers. Wilton has 8, so a bit of a mismatch there. You know, Riverside, Oakland has been to state duels before. They made it back-to-back years, and in 98, 99. Well, excuse me. I screwed this up.
98. they 98. They made the finals, right? 98. 2 times they made it.
Yeah. So no, this is their second time making it. So in 98 they made it. This is their second time. In 98 they did make the finals though.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And Wilton, you know, there's the 3rd straight time being there. It was a while for them to kind of build their program back up. They're really kind of knocking on the door. They've got some individual guys that are going to make noise on, you know, Saturday night at the individual state tournament, right? So like you said, they've got a lot of ranked wrestlers. Riverside, Oakland, you know, they've got a couple guys there, right? So let's move on to the bottom side of the bracket. It's weird seeing Don Bosco number 2. It's been a weird year for Don Bosco, like in and out of the rankings of who's in the lineup, who's not, who's hurt, whatever. But they're going to be taking on Nashville Plainfield, who's 27-5, and Bosco's 15-6. So just a weird dual season for them. Obviously, a Don Bosco guy yourself. You know, how's Don Bosco looking?
So I mean, they've been pretty injured this year. You know, as everybody is. It's not like it's just them, but you know, they're kind of where they need to be at the right time. Nashua, always a tough team, pretty big rivalry there actually. They haven't met in a duel, but they wrestled at the Hudson tournament. Bosco finished ahead of them in 8 of the 14 weight classes, so this definitely isn't a gimme for your 2 versus 7, which it sometimes is. Bosco's probably going to score a little bit more bonus points. But, you know, Nashua really, we started them highly in the rankings. They took a couple losses. Now they pull off some upsets to kind of get back into duels. So they're a tough team. They're always a tough team. Coach Frost always has them ready to roll. That's not a team you really want to see postseason because it doesn't matter what the name is on the back of the singlet. They're going to fight for the name on the front of the singlet. So, yeah, I mean, you got some good, you know, pretty good wrestlers there. You're going to have, you know, they have number 1 Jaden Rankin, always tough. You know, 2 other ranked guys there as well. So, you know, these 2 teams have met in the state finals before in state duels a couple times and other times in the tournament as well. So, you know, 2-time state champs for them. They won 04 and 12. I was actually there in 04. That was when they beat us. So
no big deal.
Yeah. But anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone knows what th're getting when they step the line with Don Bosco, and you're either going to step up to the challenge or you're going to be kind of like, you know, see what the logo was on the singlet. I mean, the history is what it is, right? 14 state dual appearances, and how many times in a row have they won this thing?
Since 2018.
Since 2018, they've won this thing. So, going to be interesting to see what that Albernet Don Bosco, if we get that duel, you know, I think that's what everyone probably is going to assume. But like looking at potential semifinal duels, what are you thinking here in Class 1A?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got a toss up there with Osage and Jessup, like we said. But I think you favor Jessup. They have the most leeway there, I would think, for things to go wrong and still win. Osage just kind of has to have it go just right. So then you'd have Albernet and Jessup in that semi. Probably favor Albernet there. That's just not a great matchup for Jessup. Albernet just has too many good guys down below. And then they're good enough up top where Jessup's in between guys probably aren't going to be able to hang. Wilton and Bosco, that's a duel. You maybe call it a toss-up. They haven't met each other this year, but, we'll talk about it later maybe, but Bosco loses by about 25 to Albernet. They didn't have their full strength lineup, but still, they beat them, and then Albernet wrestled Wilton, and that was, Albernet beats them by 15 or so. So it's within the margins for sure. A lot of key matchups there. I think that one's probably a lot closer than your Albernet and Jessup or Osage or whoever you're going to have there. But, I think you have at least one pretty good duel there in the semis.
And the one thing I like about 1A is there's going to be no likely dodging for thinking about the individual state tournament, right? Because some of these matchups, they matter, right, in a couple weeks, for seeding purposes. But duels matter in Class 1A, 100%, right? So I think we're gonna see some of those big matchups. So it feels like you're saying Albernet, Don Bosco, right? But Don Bosco doesn't have a clear road. So, is there anything like sticking in your mind, like could Jessup pull an upset off Albernet? They match up their good guys are with their good guys, right?
Yeah, I think it's just gonna be too tough a hill to climb. You got at 113, you'll have number 2 Bergman against number 3 DeWitt. So actually, that's one that Jessup would need to win, but that's one that Albernet can absolutely win. You favor Hines probably at 120 over Henriksen, but it's Albernet's going to score a ton of points from 44 to 215. So I think that's just going to be the difference in that duel.
Yep. So let's look. Albernet, Don Bosco beat him 46-23 in the duel. How does Don Bosco flip the script here?
So no matter what, the duel is going to look a lot different if this happens. Bosco didn't have number 1 Caden Belinsky, didn't have number 3 Drew Lansing, didn't have number 2 Ethan Christopher. A lot of points were scored by Albernet at those weights. Albernet doesn't have Kufal now, so it's going to look a lot different. And again, I think you can lean one way or the other. I do think it's pretty close to a coin flip at the end. I think I'm going to have to lean Albernet just because they did it last time. They're just pretty stacked throughout. Yeah. Again, this is another one that's just going to come down to the coin flip too. If some teams can move around, I think Albernet has a little bit more leeway to move around up top than Bosco does, so that kind of helps them out a little bit. But this is going to be a good one regardless.
Yeah, bottom line, I'm thinking when I'm looking at the 3 classes, the 2A and 3A, the other brackets, this is the one to watch if this happens, right? Just because there is some they're close, right? They're close, and there's a little bit of a rivalry happening. Like Albernet's kind of rising up, right? Don Bosco's been there, so the history is there. So either way, Class 1A is going to be a banger. There's a couple of duels to watch there, like you said. That Osage Jessup duel going to be fun. Jessup Albernet. There's a couple matches that are going to be probably a little tight there. So Class 1A is always fun for me. The fans are absolutely crazy. So looking forward to Class 1A. Let's move on. Any other tidbits for Class 1A before we move away from?
Yeah, Bosco's your only private school in this entire dual tournament. That was a little shocking, I guess. Jessup, they haven't won their first round match. So last year was their only time they were in. So their 5th was their best finish. So a win by them gets them their best finish ever. Like we said, Riverside hasn't been there for a while. So you got some new faces in here, and it just can be very entertaining, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to Class 2A. This when we talked earlier, when we broke down the brackets, like we had some different seeds and different thoughts on like who was going to be where. But first matchup, you've got number 1 Algona, who's 13-0. Not a ton of duels. taking on number 8 Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon's 20-10, so they've had 30 duels compared to Algona's 13. What's kind of your first look at just the number 1 seed coming in here? When I think of when I think of 2A, Algona is just like a team that really the name isn't something that you just kind of put along with it, right? I mean, they don't. We're so used to West Delaware, Osage being at that top that Algona really isn't one of those names, but they've made 2 straight state dual appearances now.
Yeah, I mean, so when you're doing preseason dual rankings, you kind of just it's based off of who's coming back for your team. If you have a team full of guys that got 3rd place at districts and didn't qualify for state, they all come back. I mean, you're going to be a pretty good dual team next year. You hardly had any state qualifiers, but you're going to be pretty decent. Algona kind of fits in that category, just a lot of decent guys coming back. This one's a little interesting because if you look at your tournament team rankings, they're actually flipped. So Mount Vernon would be number 4. Algona would be number 9. That's because Mount Vernon has a couple more heavy hitters than Mount Vernon does. They have 2 number 1s and a number 2, Mount Vernon does. So that's going to help them there. But, Algona has 6 ranked guys. Mount Vernon has 5. They cross over a little bit. So those will be some good matches. I mean, at 144, you're going to have number 1 Jace Jasper for Mount Vernon versus number 3 Barrett Morgan for Algona. So that's a big one there. The next one's pretty much the same. You got number 2 Mikey Ryan for Mount Vernon, number 6 Ashton Marino. So there's a lot of big matches here. I think this entire bracket is, I wouldn't say they're all toss-ups, but you just don't know who's going to win some of these. Like I have this one as a toss-up. So
yeah, Class 2A seemed like talking with our 2A ranker, like it's just been weird all year on the individual side and the dual side, right? Algona and Mount Vernon, just they're 2 programs that are really just starting to kind of get to their potential, right? Or getting having some of that success. So it's great for both those programs to make the state duels. Let's move on to this number 4 Williamsburg versus Indy matchup. Obviously, Independence, they've been in this tournament before, right? Williamsburg is another one of those programs that are kind of on the rise as well in Class 2A. So what's this one look like for you?
Independence has been hard all year to rank. They on paper, they shouldn't be that good. They only have 4 ranked guys. They have 3 number 7 ranked guys and a number 4. But Coach Doyle just has them being competitive in every single one of these duels. They've won a lot of big duels. They're just the definition of a team, throughout, kind of like we were talking about with Nashville Plainfield. It doesn't matter who it is, they're going to give you a fight. So it's just kind of a weird team, like we said, really hard to seed all year. And honestly, Williamsburg is about the same way. I think we had them ranked a lot lower to start the year. They just didn't have a ton coming back. They only have 1 guy ranked in the top 5. They have 5 ranked wrestlers. That would be Niall Sin, a senior for them. So, there's not going to be a lot of marquee matchups in this duel. You really only have 1 weight where you're going to have 2 ranked guys. You're going to have like I said, Niall Sin, number 5, and against number 7, Tyler Whelan from Independence. So this is going to be won by the Jimmies and Joes, I guess, as you would say, the guys that aren't the marquee names. So it's going to be a lot of fun. This is a WAMAC matchup here for your 8 teams in 2A or WAMAC teams, so that's kind of interesting. So a lot of crossover there.
Yeah, I saw some banter just about there should have been like maybe 6. Like they're complaining just about how the regionals were set up, where WAMAC I just saw some complaints on social media about the WAMAC should have had maybe 2 more teams in the state duels based off the regionals. So WAMAC's got some heavy hitters.
Yeah, they're tough. I mean. Yeah, it's always
so Indy Williamsburg, all right. When Indy Williamsburg, who do you got moving on?
Oh boy, I don't know who you got.
That's a duel. That's the duel. That's duel to watch, right? Just based off what I saw at Battle of Waterloo, I mean, Independence is one of those teams that has been in this situation. I think their coaches have a way of kind of moving people where they need to be. They're not going to have those. They're not going to have the guys that they rely on those 6 points, but they're like kind of sporadic, right, throughout the lineup. So I'm going to go with Indy here, the 5 seed, moving on, just because I think they just have a way to win.
I think I got them too. We had them ranked higher, so I got to go with them.
Okay, all right. So moving on down the bottom side of the bracket, SBL it was fun watching these guys at the state duels last year. Coach Kudum taking on Clarion Goldfield. They're 23-6. You got Sergeant Bluff who's undefeated. So they're like a hype team, right? They're dual team, like they love this stuff, and it's gonna be hard. That's a hard duel for Clarion Goldfield off the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is another one where in our rankings we kind of had them flipped a little bit. We had I thought maybe Sergeant Bluff would be the 7th or 8th seed. They are undefeated. There's not a ton of crossover here though. When we look at tournament team rankings, Sergeant Bluff is number 3, and Clarion's number 6. But like I said, in our dual rankings, I had them flipped a little bit. But Clarion Goldfield has a win over Bosco this year, so very, very tough team there. They're both fairly similar again in ranked wrestlers. It's 6 for Clarion, 5 for Sergeant Bluff. This is kind of the opposite of Williamsburg and Independence, where there are a lot of highly ranked wrestlers in this. Sergeant Bluff has 2 number 1s. Clarion has a number 1 in one of the Pets and Ponds, and then a couple top 5, 3 top 5 guys. So another one very, very interesting. Just like all the 2A matchups.
I mean, SBL's run last year, they lost to Creston last year, right? I believe. That just was a fun run just to watch that team and their fans. So definitely the team to watch. Then down the bottom side, you got number 7 Winterset taking on number 2 West Delaware. I didn't think West Delaware was going to be very good this year. That's just what I was hearing in the offseason stuff. But here again, West Delaware's got a top 3 team.
So kind of interesting with this matchup. You have the 2 teams that are in this field in 2A that have the most appearances. Winterset has 18, and then West Delaware has 15 state appearances. So a little interesting to see that at a 2-7 matchup there. I feel like I just keep repeating myself here, but West Delaware, another team where they don't have a ton of ranked guys. There's actually only 39 ranked wrestlers in this entire field in 2A. So that's only 1/3 of the wrestlers you're going to see out there are ranked. Not something you always see when you have the 8 best teams in a tournament. So, again, they have some highly ranked guys though, which helps them. They have 2 2s, a 3, and a 5. So that helps them there. Again, keep repeating, but
they're number 7. They're number 7 in tournament rankings. So this is a classic, like the other ones you were talking about. A classic, being able to put a team together.
Yep.
Might not be there on Saturday night for the individual tournament for a trophy, but dual team wise, they're going to be in dogfights every duel on Saturday. So That's a classic kind of dual team versus tournament rankings. When we hear the people on social media being like, well, they won this tournament, shouldn't they be higher than West Delaware in the dual rankings? This is a perfect example of a team that has a great dual team, maybe not as great of a tournament team. So just looking ahead, right? A tough class here to kind of predict. What are we thinking at the end of the day here in Class 2A?
Oh man, I got to be on record for this. All right, you know what? 2A's been chaos all year. Let's have Independence in the finals. Why not?
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, like you said earlier, I mean, they've got a weird team where they're good here, they're not so great here, and they're just points can change quickly, right? So they were champs in 1997, so it's been a while, but they've been in this tournament before. So I don't think you're out of bounds by saying Indy's there. I know you like take some risk on some picks here and there, but the bottom side Winterset though. I mean, I feel like we've covered Winterset a ton this year. I'm not sure how that what's been going on, but Winterset, they have a great fan base. I mean, are they a sneaky upset for West Delaware in the first round?
Yeah, I mean they could be. I think West Delaware has been pretty solid all year long. I really have. I mean, they're fairly solid too. They did take a loss in there, but they lost to Clarion by 3. So I think I have them moving on. to the semis there. Then I actually have, I think, Clarion over Sergeant Bluff. So sorry, Western Iowa, I'm not giving you a lot of love there. But.
Well, Winterseth's got a weird team. There's a lot of obviously some different factors of motivation for them down there that's happened to that team. So I'm excited to see Winterset back in the state duels. I know they wrestle a lot of 1A schools, so it'll be interesting to kind of see how they fare in these Class 2A. So all said and done, you've got Indy in the finals, but are they taking the title?
I don't think so. I think Clarion's going to pull this off.
Okay. So we've got Clarion, West Delaware, and Clarion taking the title. And so we got a 6 seed. Got a 6 seed taking it over, who's number 6 in tournament rankings. So Class 2A is just crazy.
Yeah, I'm going to look real bad when Clarion and Indy are wrestling for 7th and 8th. But.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. That's what predictions are for. All right, let's move on to Class 3A. The talk of the state is how good Southeast Polk is. I mean, they're nationally ranked here. I think we kind of have a feeling how this bracket will play out as far as a state championship, but we've got 7 other teams that have some really hot spots, some low spots, but I mean, I think the rest of, a trophy contention for 2nd and 3rd is really up for grabs here for the rest of this bracket. So tell me just kind of where you look at that Southeast Polk North Scott first duel going. Is there any kind of bright spots there for North Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody knows Southeast Polk's going to go deep in this tournament. North Scott, great job at regionals. Pulled off an upset over Bondurant first round. Huge upset over Linn-Mar, 39-27 in the regional final. I'd say probably the upset of regionals. Great job for them to even get in here. We had them ranked quite a bit lower. They didn't have the greatest results this year, but I think this is kind of your typical 1-8 in the end. Yep. Southeast Polk's going to come out on top, but no one's ever just happy to be there, but it was just a great showing last night for North Scott to get in, really.
Absolutely. So then moving on down here, the top side of the bracket, Waukee Northwest, Johnston. Both these teams, they wrestled already once. We're hearing that we're going to see 2 different teams, though, from the Waukee side. Johnston has, they've been kind of in that 8 to 5 range, maybe up to 4 a couple of times in your rankings. We didn't see Johnston versus Southeast Polk in a duel earlier, so kind of hard to see where they're at there at that tournament. What are your thoughts on Waukee Northwest and Johnston?
So they've wrestled one time this year. Johnston beat them 45-23, but that's another duel that's going to look totally different. Most of Waukee Northwest guys are down a weight now, so I think I have that duel flipping. I think I have Waukee Northwest winning that one now.
Yeah, Johnston's always been just kind of a weird team duel-wise. I don't know, if individual has been like a more of a focus, right? But I mean, they're always in that talk of like being in the state duels, right? But when it comes down to the dual tournament, it's not where they shine. They're more of an individual tournament style tournament team. So be just kind of curious to see kind of how Johnston plays this duel, based off of kind of what they knew before, right? What you said, like they won the duel pretty handsomely, and now they've got a Waukee Northwest that looks a little bit different. So kind of that is definitely going to be a duel that I think a lot of eyes are going to be on as far as the CIML goes. Down below that, you've got Indianola versus Bettendorf. I know these 2 teams have wrestled. We've got to see the Battle of Waterloo a lot. We saw a lot of these teams at the Battle of Waterloo that are in the state duels. So we were high on Bettendorf at the beginning of the year as far as duels wise. We know they're a great tournament team as well. Mm-hmm. How do they match up with Indianola?
Yeah, so like you said, they did wrestle the Battle of Waterloo. Indianola won 40-36. That was pretty late in that tournament. That can be a pretty tough tournament where you take a lot of injuries. Harn did not wrestle for Bettendorf in that one, so I mean, really, this is also a pretty big toss-up. I think I just kind of lean towards Bettendorf here. They're just going to score too many points. They just have too many points, quote unquote, in the bag with some of their heavy hitters. They're going to get a lot of pins, and they're gonna have too many points off the bat, I think, for Indianola to overcome. But I mean, really, obviously outside of that first meet, I mean, all 3 of these are within the margins, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, in my mind, I see Indianola being just kind of like a gritty team that really feeds off of other kids doing well. So I think depending on where they're at in what the flip is, will kind of determine how this duel goes. But Bettendorf is scoring bonus points in potentially 5 or 6 of these matches, right? And that's going to just be hard to overcome. So probably the duel to watch here in the first round of Class 3A. Let's go down to Carlisle. A lot of hype around Carlisle right now. Then you've got Waverly Shell Rock clear up to number 2. They're not even the top. They're number 2 in this tournament. But in a tournament side, like, we're not sure where they're going to end up on Saturday night as for the individual side. So weird dual team Waverly Shell Rock's got.
Yeah, I mean, they're actually not even top 10 in the tournament team rankings. And then we have Carlisle at 3. So this is quite the flip of the seedings. Waverly, they've earned that number 2 ranking. A lot of it was off of one weekend, I would say, but it's still, they are the number 2 ranked team. I think out of your 6 1 and 2 matchups, their first round, I would say this is the one maybe to keep an eye on for kind of your upset alert. Carlisle, they have a lot of higher ranked guys. You're going to have some toss-up matches there. 132, and then also, you got Jax Miller versus Bibler too. That one could be a little bit interesting at 65. I think I could see this one going either way. This is the first time Carlisle has ever been to state duels. They're the only team out of all classes where this is their first trip. But I think at the end of the day, your Waverly's experience is going to win out here. But I would definitely keep an eye on this duel.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting dynamic for Carlisle, right? Are they that are going to come in first time ever, going up against one of the staples in Class 3? I mean, Waverly Shell Rock has been. Let's see, they're 2 teams that combined for the last 6 titles, and they've had Waverly's been there since 2021. So I mean. How do you go up against like a juggernaut of Waverly Shell Rock? But I mean, there is a ton of hype. We've had some guys down at Carlisle. There's some individuals there that are really kind of building up that program. So easily could see that one getting flipped there too. But so you got Waverly Shell Rock going on. I don't know if you took a pick for Bettendorf and Indianola. That one's really kind of up in the air too. But we got Bettendorf. So Bet, Waverly Shock. At the top side, you got Waukee Northwest and Southeast Polk. I think if that's what you pick there. Yep. In regards to that, I mean, Southeast Polk. I just don't see how you pick a hole in there. I don't see how you pick up enough points to even have a chance of upsetting Southeast Polk. No, I mean they have 13 ranked guys. So I mean here's how they've done against teams that have qualified for state duels: 51-22 over Waukee Northwest. 60 to -1 against Ankeny. You have Waverly 61-14, and then Johnston was 54-18. Yeah. So, they currently have the record for most appearances in a row. They have 17 straight now. And I don't see that ending anytime soon. Like we said, you have Southeast Polk and Waverly. They've won the last 6 titles. The rest of the field, how many times do you think they've won it combined? Less than a handful.
2. Bettendorf won it twice, and that's it. Yeah. So,
since when?
Ever.
That's
ever.
Yeah.
but Southeast Polk and Waverly have won the last 6 combined. Crazy. So they beat them just on the last 6 years. So, I mean, I Southeast Polk, I think they're going to handle their business there in that semi. So
you got Bettendorf, Waverly Shell Rock at the bottom. I mean, did these guys wrestle at Waterloo too?
No, they didn't, because Waverly was in the top bracket.
Got it.
Bettendorf was in second. So
we didn't get to see that. But I mean, 2 teams that have been in big duels, obviously there as well. This one I think will come down to some of those bonus points that Bettendorf's able to score. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, Waverly, they have 5 ranked guys. This is kind of maybe their, how do you want to say it? They have a good team throughout. They don't have as many heavy hitters as they usually do. Bettendorf does though. So I think Bettendorf just has way too many bonus points in the bag. Jake Knight going up against, an unranked guy, Trevino unranked guy, Harn unranked guy. Then you have Jip and Kester both unranked guys. Diaz, he'll have somebody unranked from Bettendorf, but I'm sure there's going to be movement. It's not just going to be you pin. But man, I think Bettendorf just at where they're where they need to be at this time of year. They kind of dropped off a little bit in the middle there, but when you have some injuries and whatnot, that's the middle of the year doesn't matter.
Yep. Well, I think all signs, are going to be pointing to, Southeast Polk at the end. Last year, that was a heck of a duel. That was so much fun. I mean, Cade put out the Knight Pearson video last year, and we knew Southeast Polk had a really good team last year. I mean, but this year they're really good. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of like gurgling of the mouth of like how good they are, but I mean it's legit. And people don't like that because it's Southeast Polk. It's like Don Bosco. They don't like Southeast Polk. They don't like Don Bosco. They're that team this year that you love to hate them, but you got to respect kind of what they're being able to do this year, which is probably going to be putting up the most points at the individual state tournament. So, what are some key matchup potentially in the finals there that maybe we could see on Saturday night, because I'm hoping that we see some of those individual matchups like we saw last year with Knight and Pearson.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're going to have Kester and Pearson. That's going to be a good one. Trevino over Brockling, and even say Knight and Prine. Those are all top 3 matchups. I mean, there might be some movement, like we said. It's just there's a lot of good ones. I mean, I didn't even say like number 2 versus 7. You had Trinary versus Harn. So it's just going to be a lot of big names in this one. So it's going to be fun. I really just Southeast Polk's really not going to be too tested, I don't believe, but it'll still be some good matchups, I would say.
All right. So any other kind of touching points here on the state duels? I mean, we've got girls wrestling that's starting tomorrow, Thursday and Friday. And then we'll obviously have the state duel coverage on Saturday here. So any other kind of tidbits or just things what class are you most excited about?
Kind of 2A. I mean, I have no idea. I'm on record for 5 or 6 finals, so going to be watching that quite a bit. 1 or 3A, I think you kind of have your champ decided, so that takes a little fun away there, even though there's going to be a ton of good meets otherwise. But 1A going to be a very different final from the last time those 2 teams met. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a great weekend. You didn't even mention AAU districts on Sunday.
Yeah, so. AAU districts on Sunday. It was a grind of a weekend, that's for sure, for a lot of dads and coaches. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Again, 9 a.m. is the start time for 3A, 2A, and 1A quarterfinals. The top bracket's going to start first, and then at 10:45 will be the bottom side of the bracket. Consolation round at 12:30, and then your 1A, 2A, and 3A semifinals at 2:15, and then play 5th and 7th at 4, and then your finals and third place matches will happen at 6 p.m. It's going to be all live on Flow Wrestling this year, and you can get all your stuff at the Iowa High School Athletic Association website. We're going to have tons of state duel breakdowns for you, and if you haven't seen a bracket out there, it's going to be on Track Wrestling here shortly, but hopefully you got the screenshots in. So for Eric Shares, Tony Hager, Cade Nissen, thanks for everybody for tuning in to I Wrestle, and keep it locked on our social medias. We'll have you covered all weekend. Thank you.